Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are dividing dahlia tubers and it is pouring rain outside today, but I decided I was going to take out all my tubers in this pouring rain because my soil is nice and soft and soggy, so that way I'm not having a lot of tension on my dahlia tubers as I'm taking them out of the ground. Another reason why I like taking out the dahlia tubers in the rainy season is because when they're rained on, they get very swollen and you could see the eyes more readily because those are nice and swollen as well. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here, but I have 3 different sizes of tubers that I'm going to be taking apart here. Actually, I have a lot more to divide, but I'm just going to show you 3 today. So we're going to be working with this dahlia tuber clump, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about here about the eyes being swollen and readily available to see. So as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing several eyes. So here is one in particular that's very easy to see, but then you'll notice here that there's nodules all throughout the base of these tubers. So that means I could take all 5 tubers with an eye, at least one eye, if not multiple eyes per tuber. So let's get started and taking this thing apart. Before I get started on dividing these clumps, I wanted to mention you need a sharp blade, scissors, and a cutting board. I'm closely inspecting to make sure that I have a viable eye and a clean neck that I could save when I'm splitting these apart. So you'll see there is a nodule there, which is the eye, the neck that is still available, and the tuber. And then I'm just going to repeat as I go along. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of keeping the eye on the tuber. The eye is where the new sprouts are going to come from. That's where your new plant is coming from. So please make sure if you're cutting tubers for the first time that you get an eye on every cut. So there's going to be 3 parts like I mentioned earlier: an eye, the neck, and the body of the tuber. Now that we're done dividing this, I'm going to go ahead and label this pot with this variety, and I'm going to separate it from the rest of the tubers that I'm going to be separating. So that way I don't mix them up. Now on to the next clump. This clump here looks pretty easy to divide because one, the tubers are spaced far apart, and also I could see the eyes very well. Again, it's because it's a moist clump that I got out of the rain, and so the eyes are looking quite obvious. So I'm just going to cut above the eyes here, and I'm going to make sure that it is not cutting into the eyes. But first I'm going to go ahead and cut the base of the clump because the eyes, like I mentioned, are there as well, and I want to make sure that I keep that. Any eye that is available is a good option. So as many eyes as you could keep on a tuber, I would recommend keeping it. So I'm just going to speed through this, and then I'll show you the last clump that is ginormous and kind of difficult to take apart at first, but then as I start taking them off one by one, it becomes easier as I go. So now that I separated this clump, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the pot and separate it away from the other one. Now on to the big one. With the larger clumps, I do a lot of cleanup. So I'm cleaning off the stem, and I'm also going to be looking for deflated tubers, rotted out tubers like this one here. This one's rotted out, so we're not going to replant that because it only encourages more rot, and we don't want any of that. And this one only looks like it has a couple rotted out segments, so we'll just pluck them out. So now that I'm done with that, I'm just going to look it over. I actually think I'm just going to go ahead and take off all the roots because this thing is already a mess to deal with. So I'm going to try to make this as clean as possible so that I'm not fussing with any of the roots as I'm trying to divide these. So this tuber set is a different clump because I failed to record the last bit of me taking apart that big dahlia clump. But this one here is just as big and just as complicated. So I thought I'd bring you along for this one since I messed up on that video. So I just picked out another pot so that I could put all the rest of the tubers in this pot and separate it from the rest of the other tubers. So being that this is a large clump, the clumps are growing on the stem differently than the other two that I just filmed. Those were really easy because they weren't growing up the stem, but this one is. And the way it's growing is kind of like how Brussels sprouts would grow up the stem of its plant. And so this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to cut them off, making sure that I have the head of the tuber intact where the eye is at, and then the neck, and then the body. So it looks like all of them have eyes, which I'm really excited about because this is one of my favorite dahlias. And I'll insert a photo of them here. They're just a pretty white color with a lot of purple veining going through them, and they just pump out a ton of bloom, so I love making arrangements with them. And I'm just cracking up here because I had to run out in the rain and get this clump out of the ground in the rain, as you can see in the background that it's raining, just because I noticed I did not film the previous clump that I thought I had filmed, but all is good. We're still getting the job done. These tubers are a lot rounder than the previous tubers that I was taking apart, and they have very small heads and necks, but they do have eyes on them. So I'm going to show you the difference, but the eyes look exactly the same from all the other tubers except that they don't have a long neck and they don't have a big swollen head where the eye is at. So right here, you'll notice that there's eyes, and then it has a longer neck, and then it has a longer body as well. Versus these chubby guys, these are just stubbier in every way. This one tends to have a little bit of a longer neck, but their body is a lot stubbier and rounder, and then the head is not as big. Well, friends, I think I'm going to end this here because this would take me like an hour long to record. So I'm going to keep on cutting these tubers apart, and I hope you enjoyed watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.